My name is Caroline too. I'm a director of Sorry Not Sorry.
My name is Kara Monis, and I am a co-director of Sorry Not Sorry. And Sorry Not Sorry looks at Louis C.K.'s sexual misconduct scandal, primarily through the stories of um, three women as a way of raising broader questions about how do we want to deal with this kind of behavior.
So I think we came at it from different points of view. I used to be a huge Louis C.K. fan, and I was kind of interested in getting my mind around what happened and exploring, how do we think about it? How do we deal with people who've been Me Too'd? And so that's where my interest really came out. And I'm of an older generation than Kara, so I wanted to bring someone in who had a different perspective um, on what happened.
Oh, yeah, and then when Caroline asked me to join the film, I realized that there was a lot about the story that I hadn't known. I had known very little about the women and their personal stories, and also about the backlash that they had experienced. So it felt like an opportunity to uh, take this conversation forward. I was not a Louis C.K. fan. I did not watch his comedy, so for me, I didn't have the personal investment. I didn't have that kind of relationship to him as an artist, so it was interesting to learn about why he was so loved and to kind of wrap my head around why it was that this was an open secret for so long.
We pretty much reached out to everyone um, who was a friend of his and who was big in the comedy industry, and also people directly related to the story. And we found, I mean, understandably, people thought it was kind of a lose lose situation, and that they kind of just wanted to put the whole sordid mess behind them. So we were very grateful to the people who did agree to be in the film, but it was definitely one of the biggest challenges. We've had the film has been ongoing for many years, and through that time, we've kind of developed relationships with them, and some wanted to just put the whole thing behind them, and I think there was a big backlash the first time they spoke about it. So they thought, we just want to focus on our work and our careers, and then others thought, well, things haven't changed enough, so I'll put myself out there one more time. To tell a story that they thought was valuable.
I think this is something that we always grappled with. I think there was a certain amount of Louis' story that we had to include to show why he was so loved and why this was an open secret for so long. But I think that in making the film, we realized that the focus was a bit misplaced and that we hadn't been considering the stories of the women who had come forward, and why were we focusing on questions of like should he come back or not come back, when really we should be thinking about how the people who had spoken out were impacted by this and what it meant for their careers, and also why is it fair to subject someone to this behavior.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, we knew we didn't want it to be a Louis biopic. That's not what the film is setting out to do. But part of his history is obviously relevant to the story. So that's one of the best things that the film does is give what these like some of these women the space to kind of tell their story in full. I think we learned from the New York Times reporters that when writing an article, it's frustrating to the reporters themselves that the women often are mentioned in a couple sentences, and so you don't really get a sense of like the full three-dimensional person. So our one of our goals was to give women the space to talk and tell their own stories. So
Yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance that comes through in the film, and I think it raises a lot of. I think that it was helpful to realize that we kind of think about, is this so bad, or you know, is it illegal? Is it legal? And I think that we realized that some of these moments are very small, but they can add up and have a real impact on someone's career and personal life.
I'm not a comedy expert and I'm not in the industry, so I don't really know, but I think Jen Kirkman in her interview says she's sick of talking about this. She'd be happy never to speak about it again, but because things haven't changed, she feels like, okay, I'm just going to talk about it. So from her point of view, it hasn't changed enough. I think kind of dredging up a story and putting some women of these women who are in the film like in the spotlight again is definitely a concern of ours. Like, how are people going to react, and are they going to get kind of more blowback for participating. So that I think is one of the biggest dilemmas in making a film like this, is like you don't want to like bring more harm to people who've already gone through a lot. So yeah, I think that for me that's the biggest concern.
Yeah, and I think it also brought up a lot of questions for us in terms of our personal lives and made us think about what have we witnessed and not spoken about, or what did I think was normal, and maybe in retrospect wasn't, but had just been kind of used to it. So I think that it raised a lot of questions that we'll continue to think about as we move forward after this.